Hi there, Wayne Headland here with TL Sites. In this video tutorial, we are going to talk about the Fat Event plugin. This is a special plugin for WordPress that will help organizations be able to have really some nice looking, professional looking event be able to showcase the events and the calendar of events that they have. They can have just a classic calendar, but then there's a lot of other layouts that really make things look nice for your website. Now, there are a lot of other more popular event manager plugins out there, and some people might wonder why I selected this one, especially because you'll find that it's a little clunky in terms of setting up and in particular creating events. There's a few things that aren't my favorite. I wish they were just a little bit more well developed. That said, the reason why I selected this plugin, because many of my clients are really trying to be responsible with their finances, and this is something that needed to be purchased. If I built your website with this plugin, this was part of the licenses that you paid for. Right now, as of this video, it's $40, about $45 after taxes. But the reason why I selected this one over some other ones that are probably more robust, easier to use, etc., is because this one is a once and done payment. You pay the $45 and you're done. For most event plugins today, you have to pay on an annual basis, and a lot of them are around $100 or more per year. And for many of my clients, that is not something they're worth doing. So all that said, it may seem a little clunky using it, but at the end of the day, it looks great and it works well and it's cost efficient. Now, what I'm going to do is in this video, I'm going to put in the description a link to where you can actually find this page. And the reason why I'm going to recommend that you check out this page first is because there are a lot of layouts that we're going to look at that you can use for your website. And this is the best place to kind of preview those layouts before we actually go in and implement them in our website. Now, if your website's already built with the layouts that you want, great, you can skip this section and move on to how to use the tool. However, if you want to see what other layouts there are and perhaps experiment with them, I want you to consider coming here and checking it out. So what we're going to do is mouse over layout, and then you'll see there are a number of various layouts as we mouse over these options. Now, kind of a little trick, kind of keep, just so you know, is if you hold the control key down on your keyboard if you're using a PC or a command key, then you can actually select a whole bunch of these at once and put them in tabs on your browser. I'm going to do that right now so you can get a feel for what this is going to look like. I'm just going to select a number of these. I'm going to select a couple of these grids. We'll select a couple of these masonries, the event carousel, maybe this one, the calendar, and maybe come over here and I think that should be good. All right, so I've got a whole bunch up here. So what we can do now is we can get a feel for what these are going to look like. Here's a calendar widget. This is kind of showing the events that are happening on a particular day. If you select a day, it'll show you the events. Not my favorite. There's a couple of other calendar widgets I would use, so that's not one I'm going to use. Here's a classic calendar. When you select the event, it does a pop-up with a whole bunch of information, kind of like that one. That one works pretty well. What else do we have? Okay, here's a countdown, which especially for certain organizations I work with, they have events that they want to showcase. This is a great kind of a front page, putting somewhere a countdown for an upcoming event. I like that. Here's a regular list view. Here's an event layout. A grid layout, which I think is kind of nice as well. Another grid layout that's just got a different look feel to it, and we can just kind of keep going. But the point that I'm making right now is you can select the one that you like the best. This is a carousel, so it just kind of jumps between the different events, and this is our metro. All right, so now that we've done that, you'll want to keep track of this. So like this is the list view skin 1, right? This is the skin 1 for the event grid over here. This is the masonry skin 1. So you'll want to remember that down the road when you're starting to work on your website. Now, let's just jump into the back end of our website now, wherever this was built. And you'll notice off to the side, if we jump over, and this is a demo workspace, but you'll see this section called Fat Events. If we click on that, it's going to open up a bunch of options. Let's look at the options for a moment. First of all, you can mess around with the settings. I actually am not going to focus on the settings in here, but there are a few settings that you can play around with that will give you the ability to, increase some of your functionality. In particular, you might want to focus on this general setting and just kind of how things are labeled, what things are looking like. For instance, this is booking form, or seats available. We can change the names of these if we want to. So instead of it, saying seats or something, it would say something else, etc. So you can, select some different things here with the settings. I'm not going to talk about booking or coupons, but and to be honest with you, I have not experimented with it. But for those of you who are event-driven organizations, you may find it interesting to experiment with the booking feature. In particular, I'm noticing right here there's even a payment opportunity. So it could be that you can actually receive payments and book events and get registrations, et cetera, for events. You're going to have to experiment with that on your own to see how robust that is and how well that's going to work. Now, the short code section is actually going to be super important. This is where we're going to take these things that we just looked at earlier, like these different skin layouts, and we have to turn them into what's called a short code. And I've created 4 right now. I'm not going to get into this too deep, but for instance, if I click Add Short Code, I can come in here and give this short code a title. Let's just say, we'll call this a Metro, right? We'll say Metro layout, number 1. That's just telling me what it is. And then I can select them here, right? Metro 01. And then there's a number of settings that I usually, you have to look at each of them. For instance, do I want to limit how many are going to show up on the Metro? In this case, I might put 6. And you could just kind of play around with these until they work well. Usually for the open event detail, I almost always have it go into a pop-up so it doesn't open more windows for the user. And then finally, I'm going to have to remember this right here, this short code, and we'll come back to this later. But I'm going to go ahead and publish this. And now if we go back to our Fat event, to our list of short codes, we can see that there are 5 instead of 4, right? So we've got several of these short codes. The other thing you're going to have to look at is organizers. Well, what is an organizer? Organizer is going to be, is going to show up. In fact, if we jump back over here and select one of the options here, you will see, in this particular case, it opened up to a new window, but here's the organizer, right? Jane and the phone number and email and all these various items. So this is the organizer, and we want to kind of set that up in our site as well. So I've actually created 2 organizers. One is myself, Wayne Hedlund, and another one is our demo workspace of Vada Driving School. We just kind of pop into there for just a moment and see what that looks like. So really, when we create it, what we want to do is there any contact details? And then you I always recommend that you put some kind of image in there. Again, if we jump back over to organizers and look at mine, if you have different people who are in charge of different events, you can go ahead and put the image in there. You can also go ahead and put some contact information in there. You're also going to want to make sure that you implement locations. Even if you create a location that just says virtual, if you do a lot of virtual things, create a location that says online or virtual or Zoom or whatever it might be. In this particular case, I created a location called Johnson Center. And if we go into edit there, we can see that I actually even put the address, which is important. Now you can enable some Google Map feature, and that is a great tool. You're going to have to do some work on that because you're going to have to go into the admin section of your Google account, make sure your API is set up, do a lot of experimenting, and I'm not going to really talk about this in this particular video. You can or cannot choose to select to have a thumbnail for this. It's up to you. But we want to make sure that we've got organizers and locations set up. If you're really going to be an event-driven organization, you can even create categories. But let's just go ahead and jump over to all Fat events right now, and we'll see that we have no events. So let's create a new event. We can either do so clicking here or here, and let's look at what this looks like. So at the outset, it looks like a pretty classic WordPress post. However, there's a lot of things that we need to remember, and in particular, there's a few things that if you don't do them, it may, your website maybe not, the events section of your website will perhaps not pop the way that it needs to. So let's go ahead and create an event, and let's call this event, because we're looking, our website is related to vehicles and cars and those kinds of things. It's a driving school. Let's create an event. Let's call it July. We'll call it July Car Show, right? No, we're gonna say July Dog Show. Let's do that. July Dog Show. And even though we're a car company, evidently we're doing a dog show. Normally in here, we're going to put a little bit of information. You don't want to do a ton, but some information about your event. So, and you can do, event information right here. And I might even come in here and say this is going to be great. And if I want to, I can even change that to a different heading. If I want. Now I've gotten that down, and so the next thing I'm doing is going to scroll down. Now WordPress kind of adds all kinds of weird sections in here, so I recommend that you do this for yourself once. So this excerpt is actually part of maybe an SEO kind of a thing, search engine optimization. You may or may not need that, so I'm going to collapse that one. I'm also going to turn off comments right here. I'm going to take this. I'm going to collapse the event details just briefly. And collapse that right here. Where'd it go? Oh, here we go. I didn't mean to move event details. So this is actually, it won't let me collapse it. But I am going to move this excerpt over here out of the way. I'm going to move it all the way to the bottom. I don't want to see it every single time because I'm not going to pay attention to that. Same thing with Avada options. If that's at the top, we don't want to pay attention to Avada. If you're using the Avada theme, that's what that's all about. But in this particular case, we don't really need it. This discussions is just a toggle on and off. So I'm actually going to move it over here. And I'm also going to move this featured image up here to the top so that, and I'm also going to move event color just below that. And you'll see why here in a moment. This is going to be actually very important. All right. So once you set up all these widgets in here, the first time you set it up, you will never have to set it up again. You also can come into screen options here and turn certain things off. So for instance, if you're not going to use tags, if you're not going to do maybe attendees in the excerpt and various things, you can turn some of these things like the Avada options off, right? And that will just kind of remove some of the items in here as well. So either way it works. All right, so back to our list. We have our title, we have our description. You can also put some images in here, but I would keep it down to a dull roar. Don't do too much. It'll start making the post a little overwhelming. So let's move down to the event details for a moment and say, well, what's going to be the date of the event? Well, this isn't a July event, so let's just say it's going to actually happen on July 4th on Independence Day in America. And what's going to be the time? Well, it's going to start, let's say, we'll say at 9 a.m. Now, this is actually one of the areas with the Fat Events that was a little disappointing for me. But at the end of the day, you just have to do a little bit of math. It takes a little bit longer. But when you set up the event, it uses military time. So it doesn't let me do AM and PM. So if this event's going from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock, what I actually have to do is come in here and it's going to say instead of 9:35, it's going to be 1500, right? So 9 o'clock to 1500, which is 3 o'clock. Now we can set it up using our settings, and I may not have done that yet. So let's just kind of come in here. So right now the time format is set for 24-hour, but we'll go ahead and change that here. This format right here, changing it from 24-hour to this format, that's going to affect the front end, what people see when they go to the website. It does not affect this back end. So we still have to use the military time. Sorry about that. That's just how it works. So again, 1 right here, title, 2, information, 3, the start and end date for our one-off event. Now let's scroll down, and again, very important, always select the location and always select the organizer, right? Always select the location and the organizer. There's a bunch of other things you can look at here. We're not done. So now if we come over here to the side, we'll notice a few other things. We need, and this is actually very important, the whole point of your website is to attract guests. And so you'll always need to have a good image, and you can just find some free images out there, some great free image services. In this particular case, I already found one that was free. I've got a nice image here for our July dog show. And then the last thing here is to remember to change the colors. Now, I'm not quite sure. Maybe later on I'll understand better the rhyme and reason for this. First of all, I'm not able to set, that I can tell in the settings. I didn't see any place where we can set the default colors. So what we have to do, I guess I should have, yeah, I don't think that there is, and probably should have spent a little bit more time, but I spent some time already looking at it. Now, the problem is this right here where it says seat not available color. I don't know why, but this is actually going to be the color of the event in the calendar view. So if we come over here to this view right here, it's very, whatever you want the color to this of this event to be, if you're using the calendar view, you need to set this color right here. And so I'm going to come over here and make it to a nice, let's see, red, white, and blue. So we'll make it blue, right? So it's a, and then these here colors, I find that they don't really, I don't tend to really use them, at least so far. Again, if you're using reservations and that functionality and the booking functionality, you'll have to experiment with this a little bit more. All right, so I think I've done everything that I need to do for this particular event. I'm going to go ahead and publish it. And I'm going to actually go to the page that I have created to showcase this and several other events here. So let me go ahead and refresh that page now that I've created my July dog show. And let's jump over to July in our calendar. And there it is right there. If I click on it, it's going to open it up. There's my funny dogs. There's the organizer. This export is something that for especially business people and professionals, people like to be able to add to their calendar the event, so they can use that using the iCal for those who know how to use it. And here's our event information. I also got some events, some links here. So if I want to share this on my own Facebook account or Twitter, etc., this is where I would be able to do that as well. Okay, so far so good. We've created our first event. Let's go back and do the next thing. So we want to add another event, and let's see here. Let's add. Let's talk about adding another one-off event, but we're going to call this a Christmas event, and we'll call this Christmas in. Hang on, right here. Let's say Christmas in May, right? Christmas in May. Just I want the event to show up in May, and so it's Christmas early, right? And I have no idea what this event is for or why we're doing it, but I just wanted to showcase it because we're going to use the countdown feature. And so let's put some dummy text in here. Let's select the date for this event. We'll say May 31st. And let's just say it's going to happen at, I don't know, 1700. And we'll do May 31st, and it gets over at, let's say, 1830. So it's an hour and a half event. Okay, so I had to, again, put that information in there. Let's don't forget to select the organizer. In this case, we'll say it's the driving school. Now, as we've talked about over here, we want to set that featured image. And I already have an image in here for our Christmas event. I'm going to select the color, and you can just set some default colors. In this case, maybe I'll select green. And this particular time, I'm also going to, and I'm going to turn that allow comments off. You have to do that each time. But I'm going to select what's called a background image. And you'll see why here in a moment. So I'm going to go ahead and select background image. I don't know, let's just go ahead and select that same Christmas image and see what happens here. All right, so have we selected our event? Yes, we have. Let's go ahead and publish it. Okay, that didn't take too long for a one-off event. It's not too bad. Now let's come back to our calendar and let's see what happened. So in our calendar view, I can see it showed up right here. If I click on it, it's going to show that information. Everything looks nice. The reason why I wanted to showcase this event was for those of you who want to do, and we'll pay attention to these things later, but we have this countdown view. Now, the countdown view is not showing anything. Wow, why is it not showing anything? Well, because I have to set the countdown view up individually. So let's jump over to shortcodes for a moment and talk about countdown. So I have this countdown shortcode already created. It's already implemented into my page. I'm going to click on edit. And with the countdown view, I can select the event that I want to focus on. In this particular case, it's going to be Christmas in May. I'm going to select the event Christmas in May. When is the start date? Well, the start date could be today, 5/21, and the end date will be right over here, May 31st, let's say at we said 1800, right? So that would be the start and end date. Everything else should be fine. Let's update that and move over to our page and see if it's going to update our countdown view. And there it is, our countdown view. Great, new upcoming event, Christmas in May. I have 10 days, 7 hours, 16 minutes, and 5150, right? Seconds. If I click view details, it's going to open that into a pop-up with more information. Perfect. Okay, it's functioning just the way that I want it to. This could be a really nice showcase on a front page for an upcoming event. Just have to remember when the event is over, it's going to say 000, and you really should either remove it or put the next event you want to highlight. That's how we use the countdown. Now, we're going to jump into something that's a little bit more, in my opinion, again, one of the other items with this Fat Event thing that I feel is a little bit frustrating, but we can pull it off as long as you understand what I'm about to show you, and that is recurring tasks. So let's come in here and add an event, and we're going to add a weekly event. This is going to be an easy one. We'll call this weekly car show, right? Weekly car show. And this one's going to be super easy. We're going to set this. It's going to happen every, let's say every Sunday, and we'll have it happen at 1 o'clock, and then it'll be Sunday. So that was Sunday the 19th. Sunday, that's actually right here. Let's see, 14. Well, we're going to say that's maybe 2 or 3 hours right there. Okay. So 3 hours. And right here, of course, we're going to jump down here and say, you know, where is the location? We have several locations. Who's the organizer for this? But then let's pop back up here. Of course, I guess we should set that featured image as well. So let's go ahead and select that one right there. This is not a countdown event, so I do not need to add the background image. I'm going to turn the comments off, and let's just go ahead and set this color to be orange. Now, what we need to do here is set event repeating right here to on. We're going to click yes, and it's going to say how often does it want to repeat. So this is actually important. If you forget a couple of these details, it might break how this works. So first of all, this is an easy one. It just happens every week at the same exact time. No problem. However, if I do not update the repeat event display, only one event will show up, even though I've set this up. In fact, let's go ahead and test that right now. Let's jump over to our calendar. Let's wait for that to load. And there we go. Reload our page. All right, so there it is. Actually, it is showing up more than one. How interesting. Oh, actually, oh yeah, so it's showing up. It's repeating once, right? Because I put in there the weekly car show, I put repeat event once. It's showing the original date, okay, which is last Sunday, and then one repeat. Again, if I put in here and say 3 repeats, repeat the event 3 weeks in a row. Now, this is actually helpful if you're doing some kind of event that actually has only so many weeks it's happening, then this would be very helpful. So we kind of scroll over here and we can see, right, it's repeating 3 times. But for those of you who might have events that literally happen forever, you're going to just have to pick a big number, like 300. And I would be careful. I don't know. I haven't experimented with, maybe put 3,000 or something like that. There's 52 weeks in a year. So, perhaps if I did, 500, that would be several years worth theoretically. So I could potentially do that and just go ahead and update that. Update. Hopefully it's updated. My website. My browser's doing something weird, so please forgive me. All right, let's come back over here. Let's change that to, like I said, 500, and we'll update. Okay, I'm getting an error. value must be less than or equal to 365. Sorry, some of you probably saw that. So I've been usually doing about 300, but let's just go ahead and 365. So this is weekly. That's going to be 365 weeks. Let's update. There it went. So sorry about that. And now we can come over to our calendar and we can see that it is updating every single week. Now let's talk about some exceptions. What happens if we're like, hey, you know what? There's certain events that's coming up, like maybe in June. We don't actually want to do it on the 2nd. Maybe for some reason there's other events going on and we don't want to do that. So we can actually create some exceptions, which is can be very helpful. So it's right in the plugin, the Fat Event plugin, they call it a day off. So in this particular case, we're going to say June 2nd, and let's say June the 30th, right? Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. June 2nd, we're taking off. We can add another one, and we'll say that's going to be June the 30th. So we're taking those 2 days off. Basically, we're excluding them. Let's update that. Let's test it on our calendar, which is always good to test, make sure things are working. So we've got May. Let's pop over to June. And whoa, something went wrong there. I don't know what I did wrong. Let's just come back over here, 365. Okay, I did say day off. June 2nd. Oh, see, I I did that wrong. So let's just delete that one. Let's try it again. Pop in here, June 2nd. That one said June 2nd to June 30th. So it literally took off the entire month of June, which is, again, good to know that you can do that. In this particular case, I just wanted to take June the 2nd and this one here, June the 30th. There we go, 30/30. All right, let's try that one more time, and let's go ahead and update our page and see if it worked. Jumping over to June, and it took off the 2nd and the 30th. All right, so far, so good. We're doing pretty well. Let's just jump back over. I think we've done our weekly car show. Now we're going to create one more recurring event, and we're going to find this one is going to be a little bit more of a challenge. We're going to come over here to add event, and we'll call this our monthly driving test, right? Monthly driving test, because we're a driving school. And so here's the deal. This is going to happen maybe on the 2nd Saturday of every month. So let's go ahead and set the start date. We'll do, even though it's already past due, we'll say the 11th. When does it happen? Well, it happens at 9 in the morning. On the 11th, it goes from 9 to, let's say, noon. It's a 3-hour training school. Let's go ahead and remember to set our location and our organizer. Let's go ahead and remember to set our color. Make that one, I don't know, the orange. And we want to set that featured image as well. And so in this particular case, we'll just pick this red car. And so now we want this to be recurring. So let's do event recurring. And here is probably the most frustrating thing about this plugin. That requires a little bit of manual work, but it's not the end of the world. So if I want this to be monthly, unfortunately, all it lets me do is it'll recur it monthly on the date. So right now it's showing May 11th. So if it's going to recur monthly, it's going to be June 11th, July 11th, etc. Of course, that's not going to work very well because I want it to be monthly on the 2nd Saturday of the month. So in this particular case, it's a little bit more frustrating. I'm going to come in here and put in my 365 to make it, in essence, for many, many, many months. In fact, I can even just do 200 if I want to. That's a lot of months moving forward. So instead of doing monthly, unfortunately, what we're going to have to do is custom. Now, if you have custom days every week, this is going to be tedious. But if it's, on a monthly basis, it's not going to be too difficult. What we're going to do is we're going to come in, and we've already got the first date set. We have to manually add the days. And again, it won't take but probably about 5 to 10 minutes. So I know that this is going to be 9 o'clock. Now, the quick and easy way is to highlight the start time, copy, go over to the end time and paste it, and then just change the time. Okay, so that was easy. So I just added my first recurring. Here's the first one. This is June. We'll go ahead and add the next one. This is going to be July, the 2nd Saturday of the month at 9 o'clock. I meant to put 9. And you kind of get the idea. So what I have to do, and again, this takes maybe just about 10 minutes to do it for a year's worth of events. I'll add one more. We'll say August, the second Saturday of the month. Right here, it's supposed to be 9 o'clock. We're going to say August, the second Saturday of the month, the 12, and we've done it. All right, so we'll do that for the entire year if it's every month of the year. Of course, if you take off, you need to take off, and then we'll go ahead and publish that. So if you're doing something that's manual like this, the important thing that you need to remember, if it's something that happens year round, is someone needs to remember, right, to set a reminder for themselves, probably I would say maybe in the fall, like in September, to set all of those dates for the following year. So as of this recording, it's 2024. So in September, I would have a little note that would pop in my to-do list to remind me to go ahead and set all of 2025 events. Okay, so please don't forget to do that. So let's come over and now let's look at our calendar. Let's refresh the calendar page, our upcoming events page, and let's see what we've accomplished. So here is our weekly car show that happens. Okay, we've done that. That's great. We've got our Christmas in July event. That's great. Okay, we have this second Saturday of the month that's showing up right here. There's that event. I didn't put any information in there, so I should have done that. That's fine. We can do that later. And now let's scroll down and see some of the different views and how this works. So here's the carousel view. I can see various events. I don't have a ton of events, so I see that my weekly car show is just showing up here, but then there's my July dog show. There's my second Saturday of the month in July. So this is kind of the carousel view, especially if you have a lot of events. This carousel view could look really nice. We've got this masonry layout view, which is kind of cool. It just kind of makes things look a little bit differently. Of course, we have the countdown view. Now, there's one more view that we can play around with, and I'm going to go ahead and show you, and then we're pretty much done. Remember when we created that other view called the Metro layout? So the Metro layout had this short code. So let's go ahead and update the short code. Now, what you're going to do for this is you're going to go into whatever WordPress website you're using. So it might not look exactly like this. In this particular case, we're using what's called the Avada website builder. So I'm going to just do a few things here that you may not need to know how to do. But what you're going to do is you're going to go into the page and you're going to change or add that shortcode. So I just added that shortcode that we found right over here for Metro layout, and I'm going to save it. We're going to actually view this in another page because sometimes when we play with plugins, you can't see it live very well. And let's scroll to the very bottom and see if our masonry layout worked. There it is. Okay, so that was the masonry. I can set up the settings so it doesn't look so awkward here, but it looks like it's accomplished what I wanted it to do, right? So this is a pretty good, I think I've covered all of the things that are important to me. I'll mention this as well for any of those events that you're using that are like, monthly, like this monthly driving test, and you had to go in there when, as time goes on, because these are manually set, you can eventually delete them, right? So like, let's say it's 2025, you can just go back in and delete all of these old dates so that they're not gumming up the works for you. All right, so I think that covers what I wanted to for this particular plugin. Hopefully this will help you feel equipped and empowered to have professional looking, great events on your website for your organization. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great, great day.